I ask Erica to introduce our speaker tonight, I just want to thank again some of the sponsors who make this program possible: Lazarus Worthy, Women's Center for Entrepreneurship Corporation, and the Applied Research Corporation. Erica, it's all yours.
Hi, everyone. Every year, we invite a great female entrepreneur to speak with us, to candidly share some of what they've learned. And this year's speaker is truly extraordinary. Betty Manetta founded Argent Associates in 1998. Today, she continues to lead it as president and CEO. Argent delivers supply chain services that are absolutely strategic. Argent helps its customers capture crucial real-time information about what's happening at the heart of their businesses. And Argent helps them improve both efficiency and security, deliver better products and services, and even protect the environment. Argent is doing something right, a lot actually. It's the nation's fastest growing women-led company, and it manages over $1.2 billion in assets. AT&T named it one of their top 5 suppliers, and AT&T has thousands of suppliers. When she founded Argent, Betty Manetta already had 20 years of experience in cutting-edge telecommunications. Today, if you purchase cloud services from her, you're partnering with someone who understood the cloud long before most folks even heard of it. She's also made it a priority to give back. For example, she mentors women business leaders in Afghanistan and Rwanda. Bottom line, Betty Manetta has much to teach us. On behalf of all of us at Fairleigh Dickinson University, I'm proud to welcome her, Betty Manetta.
Wow, nothing like you guys, though. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here, especially at the heels of all these young entrepreneurs and so many women. I love it. I love it. This is great. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Erica, for the kind words. Thank you, Rothman Institute, Fairleigh Dickinson, and all our sponsors. Thank you for all that. One of the things, too, I don't know if you all knew that, but this is the kickoff week. It's called Startup, and it's part of a global entrepreneurial program. It's this weekend, so I'm sure you all knew that, but it was surprising to me because when I first started out, very young like you all, I didn't have that opportunity. But I got to tell you a funny story. So as they mentioned, I started back in 1970-something, working for a company called Western Electric. And I started out as a secretary. Just made it out of secretarial school. It was called Berkeley Secretarial School in Patterson. And so I was a secretary, and I hope you all know what that is because they're no longer around, or they're very few. And I was, so I was taking dictation. My boss was dictating a letter. And I grew up in Elizabeth. And my parents were immigrants from Argentina. And so they didn't speak any English. So naturally, my sister and my brother and I learned everything on our own. So anyway, he's dictating a letter. And it was to someone. He was talking about a person. And he said, he's a true entrepreneur. And I'm sitting there and I'm doing my steno and I'm like, oh my God, what is entrepreneur? I'm trying to like phonetically, but he kept going on. So I'm writing it longhand, and then I went out to transcribe the letter, and I'm like, okay, we didn't have computers back then, so I had to take the dictionary, and I'm trying to find the word entrepreneur, and of course, I didn't know how to spell it. So I look it up, and I found it, and I never forgot that word, never forgot that word. And here I am today talking to you about a word I never knew. So I am so blessed and humbled to be here. So let me tell you my journey. As you know, I grew up in telecommunications, and coming from parents, my father, I think, graduated high school, but my mother never did. Yet she was a whiz in math, was great. And so I think as many of you, because I look around this room and I see so much diversity, we are all entrepreneurs just because we're here, right? So we came to this country not knowing the language, not knowing the custom, and they worked in factories, and so to give us a better life. And so, so eventually, you know, graduated high school, went to work at Western Electric, and there I was given the opportunity to go to school at night. So I went to school at night while I worked all day, and I always, though, throughout my career, always had little side jobs. So I used to, you know, run the concession stand at a place called Ritz Theater in Elizabeth. I did some construction work on the side. I ran the books for somebody. I don't mean cooking them, I mean actually writing them, doing accounting. And eventually, you know, I got my education, and then I was able to do some international business. So eventually Western Electric became AT&T Network Systems, became AT&T, and then later Lucent, and now Alcatel-Lucent. So the history goes on, but I was able to do a lot of stuff internationally where I gained a lot of experience, a lot of networking. And finally, in 1998, I decided to, I was running at that time supplier diversity for Lucent. And I realized that there were a lot of people doing stuff and really didn't understand the industry, didn't understand the challenges that, that companies like AT&T, Verizon, and others have around their supply chain. Remember, they have a huge network all around the world, and these networks need to be operated, and they need to have a lot of things in there. And so I realized that there was a gap, and so I told my boss, I said, hey, if I left, could I come back as a supplier? And he goes, well, you're Hispanic, you're a woman, you can get certified, and then come back and do business with us. And so I did. I did all that, got my process in place, and then started my business. And then, of course, my first project was a value-added reselling opportunity called VAR. And that meant I had to buy the product from a manufacturer and resell it into AT&T because they get credits from the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, because they have to do so much business with minority, women, now disabled vets, and small businesses. So anyway, I found myself in a situation where I had to finance a project worth $40 million. So I said, okay, I went to the bank, and they saw my balance sheet. Well, I was new. So guess what? Not too many people are giving out money when you're just starting up your business. So access to capital has always been a challenge for many entrepreneurs. But then I remembered a company that was trying to do business with us while I was still at Lucent, and the name was Annixter. They're a big distributor of products. So I went to them and I said, hey, how about if we start a mentoring protege program, and I'll be your protege, and you be my mentor, and I'll get you some opportunities that'll be incremental. So it'll be new sales for Annixter through a minority woman-owned business. They said, okay, if you can do that, let's try it. So after 6 months or 8 months, we did about $80 million of business through my network of people, through their infrastructure, because obviously they had the capital, they had the warehousing, they had the capability to help me, but I managed the customer. And of course, you know, you got to pass that red face test, right? You got to make sure that it's not seen as just a pass-through, that there is no value add. So again, my thing was I wanted to add value to that supply chain. So there's always the customer care. There's always doing things a little bit different and being able to generate reports and metrics and things like that that helps them understand their industry and their business. So pretty soon, after a while, I was able to open up my own warehouse, open up my own office, hire my own people, and little by little, we started climbing that ladder. And again, not easy. Sleepless nights, not knowing where, because I don't know if a lot of you are in telecom, but if you know the industry, technology, it's like this, right? So then came the year of, you know, money out of the wazoo. There were startups all over the place, people making unbelievable money. Unfortunately, I missed that boat, and so I did it the hard way. And but again, you know, things turned. And I was there making sure that I always interface with my customers. I joined a lot of different organizations. I belonged to the Rothman Institute back then. I always kept my networks because it's so important. We can't do it alone. It's knowing people, making sure that you continue to network, to partner, because it's all, it's not one person that can do it. I have great ideas. I have a lot of energy. So to me, it's important to continue. So I did that. I was able to do that. And when a lot of companies were going out of business, I took that opportunity to be able to move into an office, buy all the equipment that people were selling pennies on the dollar because they were just going belly up. There was so much capacity out there. And so that's when I started making my investments. Because again, I started in my home, and I was able to save the money during the good times. And then when the bad times happened, you had enough cash to go out and spend and have the money and the affordability to make sure you're in front of your customers. Make sure you're at all the events, the women organization, the minority organizations, the Hispanic organization. So it really is. And so now today, I am on the board of the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber. I do a lot of things with women and mentoring because you want to always give back, right? So anyway, the company kept growing, and I continued to invest in people, invest in technology, and invest in ideas, right? So the supply chain continues to evolve, and we just had an advisory board meeting where we talked about supply chain. And again, that being my core business, we started using technology to enhance it. So, for example, now we do tracking systems. How do you track assets when it goes into the big world, right? So there's so many things happening out there. There's so many things that you have to be careful of. The one thing that we're going to be talking about is counterfeit products, right? So that's something that plagues a lot of industries, pharma as well as telecommunications. So how do you make sure that you authenticate the product? So we added that into our repertoire. Now we offer services, professional services. So we do now in the mobility space. That area is growing significantly as you all have your devices out there. It's clogging up the network. So now they need to kind of densify the network and put out small cells and things like that. So we developed an organization and a product that allows you to do that. And so it's in the labs being tested. So again, we're focusing on professional services, engineering, installation, and again, all around mobility. Recently, last year, I started a new business called Associar. Associar in Spanish means to associate, to partner. And so I started that company in a partnership relationship. So I own 51%, and my partner, Fujitsu, owns 49%. And that company is going to be focused on the cloud, more about the data center, integration of cabinets, because again, a lot of these networks are becoming more data-centric, so it's going to require a lot more integration of works, and so many different technologies are out there. But again, it is so important to understand what's out there, what you're doing, and making sure you have a good platform to grow, and you have the stamina, because corporate America is not what it used to be. At times, when I was younger, it was, sometimes you joined a company and it was a job for life. Well, that's no longer the truth, right? Wall Street manages a lot of these companies. It's all about the bottom line. So you have to create your own destiny. You have to be able to go out there and create your future. And based on what I heard today, it is just unbelievable that you guys are so way ahead. And to see such young people already looking at entrepreneurialism, which we never had. We never thought of entrepreneur, because that was just, you go work for somebody. But I think Steve Jobs, and there's so many people that have paved the way for us not to be afraid, right? Take the risk. Make sure it's a risk that you know what you're going to get into. So don't bank your house and your family's money, but just make sure that you do step your toes in, and that you do it with a lot of information and a lot of data. Again, I did it because I knew the industry, knew the business, but I always had that little bit of, my husband's here today, and so without the infrastructure that allows you to do that, it also makes it a little bit of a challenge. But nonetheless, it is something that now is more plausible than ever before. And I am so in honor to be here. And again, one of the things, my family is very much entrepreneur. My husband always had his own business, a little bit different because he's in the produce business, more food, and now merchant services. But again, I hope my kids take the learnings that they have the pleasure of living in a house, of being entrepreneurs themselves, and I know they will one day. Some will take a little longer than others. My daughter loves her life in Hoboken, as we all can imagine. But I see that she's going to really grow up to be something that I'm going to be very proud of. And again, it's an honor to be here. I congratulate all of you, and I thank you for this opportunity to address the audience. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I'd be delighted to take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. It was wonderful. So we have some time for questions. If you raise your hand, we'll bring the mic. And I want to hear from some students, at least 4 student questions, or you're not leaving the room tonight. How's that? So you're not a student. Always learning.
Hi, Betty. I'm on the board for the Women's Center for Entrepreneurship, so we have a lot of women, men coming through trying to learn. What was it that triggered in your mind that you could start a company? Granted, you saw a lot of things come through, but what sparked it that this is something that should go somewhere and I should be the one leading the pack?
That's a very good question. I think trying to create something different for my family. During the time, it was very uncertain what was happening with our company, right? We were always on the verge of being sold, and I was like, do I want to always live that fear that tomorrow I'm going to be gone, and then what do? Then you're out there with thousands of other people. And so I just always had it in me to start my own business. I was always afraid to do it. And finally, I went to my husband. I said, what do you think? Should I do it? Now's the best time. The kids, my mom is living with us. She's really supportive. I can do this. I can do it. Let me have a shot at it. And so I took the chance. And again, I think it was just seeing that there was this gap out there because they weren't doing, some other companies were doing great business and they didn't understand the industry. They didn't understand where the technology was going, where the business was going, but they were just making money because of who they were. But yet they couldn't address the issues they had. So I think it was more out of seeing a necessity within the industry, and then also not being I didn't want to get caught up in that whole downsizing that was going on or that was going to happen a few years later. So you always have to keep your eye on the ball, see what's happening out there. Do reading because the more educated we are, the more we have control of our destiny and our future. So, but great question. Thank you. Yes, back there. I could.
Excellent. How do you balance your entrepreneurship, use and Hi, I'm Renee. Pleasure to meet you and hear you speak. But I was just wondering how you were able to keep that balance between your home and family life and still go through those sleepless nights. I know it wasn't easy, but how were you able to separate that?
It was difficult. It was very hard. The only good thing, because I used to travel a lot internationally before I left, this afforded me the ability to start my business from home. So my daughter was in the 3rd grade, my son Mikey was in the 5th, and they were not that far, so I was able to do my proposal, still be able to pick them up, and they knew that when they got home, I'm on conference call, so they were very quiet. So I did that for 2-3 years out of my home. And then eventually I moved out. I also had my mother that at that time was living with us, so she was a great anchor. And she passed away a couple years ago, but I know I couldn't have done it without her. So it's your family. And the one thing that the other day we had a women's conference in Washington, D.C., and it's at the table. And one of the things that we realized as we went around the room, we all had the same story, a strong mother. or a strong father, but one of them, you know, and so my mom was that anchor, and so she helped me balance. And then, of course, as they got older, then I was able to do a lot more things and travel. And now, of course, now it's just my two little doggies that I have to worry about. But it is a challenge. Yeah, you gotta do it right, and you have to make sure that you allocate the quality time with your children, which I always did. On the weekends was their time, gymboree, whatever they wanted to do, I did it. Taking my son to that hockey game and freezing and trying to strap those things, you know. But I always had your device, you know. So now in a mobile world, there is so much we could do wherever we are, right? We're very virtual. It was a little bit different then, but now it's a lot easier to be able to balance both with technology. So thank you, great question. Back there.
Hi, how are you? My name is Isaiah. I'm from Rahway. What are your future goals and admirations for the near future?
My future goals.
Yes. Do you plan on staying at Argent Associates, or you want to open up a new business?
Well, I think I'd like to eventually do something else. But right now, my goal is to make sure that I can employ more people and give them an opportunity to create something in their life. The one thing that I do have, especially when you do this kind of work, there's a lot of young kids that can't find jobs. And so we bring in a lot of young people that we're training them to become walk testers, doing RF, radio frequency validation and optimization. It's great to see my warehouse people that are immigrants that came to this country and be able to buy a house, to buy a car. And, you know, it was funny because somebody said to me, what makes you happy? That's what makes me happy. When I could see my employees send their kids to college, buy a new car, buy a house, because now I'm creating wealth for my community. I am giving back to my community, and that is such a wonderful feeling to be able to see your employees grow. So I think what I like to do is continue what I'm doing, hopefully morph into and do more with Associate, and hopefully have somebody to run Argent and you know, grow it in a different way, maybe do some more vertical sideways growth, you know, because you don't want all your eggs in one basket, right? So that's not healthy. So we're already doing stuff in aerospace. We're doing some technology with enterprise customers and the cloud, of course, and now doing some mobile data centers. So, you know, I want to make sure that I don't stay too focused on telecommunications, because you don't know when that's happening. So, good question. Thank you.
I have one last question. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
You said you're trying to provide jobs for teens, right?
Yes.
Okay. Argent Agencies, that's your company name, right?
Yes, Argent Associates.
Where's their locations for teens?
So we're located in Edison, New Jersey.
Okay.
Right in Raritan Center. And then, of course, we have facilities in other parts of the country. But the two principal is Edison and Plano, Texas. And so that's why you hear that y'all. No. They're always busting me because I sound very Jersey when I go down there. And but Edison, New Jersey is where we do, and we're doing a lot of work now in New York City. So, you know, there's this whole broadband proliferation organization called Wired NYC, and we're doing the audits on some of the buildings, because what they're trying to do is get their buildings up related to technology. So, hopefully that'll continue, and we're going to see how that's going to expand nationwide. So there's a lot of stuff happening in that area. So thank you.
In your opinion, how do you think that the real world compares to our school experiences?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How do you think the real world compares to our school experiences?
The real world, based on your school, I think it's very like the real world experience, because companies like AT&T and Verizon, they all have their foundation where you can come in and bring in your ideas, and then they put it to the test. Obviously, it's a little more complicated than this, but you know, they look for ideas. They're looking. Everyone is starving for innovation. Think about the apps, right? There's so many apps out there. people are hiring young kids like you to create an app, right? Because they know that there is so much opportunities out there as the devices continue to grow, as we go to LTE, as you go to VoLTE, voice over LTE, as you continue to stream data, photos, movies, and things like that. I mean, just think about it. It's just unbelievable the amount of talent that they're looking for, and the Googles and the Apples, because they're all getting into. So at one time it was a very definitive line. Now it's convergence, right? So you have TV companies and Walt Disney that's getting into data, and so it's all starting to converge. So I think you have a great opportunity, and the real world is looking for young people like you to innovate. And so by getting the experience early on, as you go to really pitch ideas as you get older, it's going to be even better. But just remember, be careful, because sometimes they take your ideas, some of these companies, and they run with it under their own name, right? So if you have a great idea and you really want to, have somebody help you to patent some of those ideas so that you retain some of that. Remember, and I think I read something where Steve Jobs, one of them, whether it was the Microsoft, one of them had some idea and he bought it from somebody else real cheap, and then he just took off. So watch what, if you have that idea, just make sure you protect it. I hope that helped. I hope that helped.
Hi. You mentioned that the major players in your industry, when you first entered, lost sight of where technology was heading. How do you, now that you two have become a major player in that industry, keep sight of what made you unique in the first place?
I'm sorry, can you speak a little louder?
I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry. Hi. You mentioned that when you first entered the industry, the major players there forgot where technology was moving. Now that you two are an enormous company, how do you keep sight of what made you unique in the first place?
How do I stay in touch or stay on top of what's happening in our industry?
Yeah.
Do this. You can Google, you can do all kinds. I always put in something like what's happening with small cell, what's the next, going to events and trade shows where they're always talking about the next generation of products and services. Like we talked about today, there's an MBA program or a master's program here at the college at Fairleigh Dickinson on supply chain, because we see where this is heading. Think about it. It's getting more complicated. It's a global thing. So watch what universities are doing, because they're also an indicator of what's happening, where they see things are going. So doing your homework, doing research, attending events. So if you develop something in sustainability, for example, then you should be going to see what kind of green organizations are out there, what type of sustainability events are happening in your region that you can go to. But read. To me, that's how I do it. And when I see something, I look it up and I see what's happening. And I had some really good ideas that people stole, like that whole containers, where you take containers and you turn them into mobile warehouses, right? So now they have pods, right? That was my idea. The other is the vending machine. So there's a company, so I said put vending machines where you can access consumable products in your company, for example. And there's a company now that's doing that. So, again, I think sometimes you need a little money and maybe a good backer. And unfortunately, I just came up with these ideas, but I didn't put them into action. But you have the opportunity today and over the next couple of years to take your ideas, to take those opportunities and move them forward. Right? This college has given you, this university has given you this opportunity. Take advantage of it. Your schools have given you, because they understand you're going to need help, and they're the catalyst to get you there. Take advantage of it. You're in a sweet spot. Do it. And congratulations to all of you again. Thank you for having the opportunity to address you. And I'm dying with these 10.